Alright, how to keep fish tank clean. I don't wanna be here anymore. Where's my notes? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, as you guys can see by the title, it is a video that a lot of people have asked me to make recently, and I decided to film it for you today. Today's video is specifically going to be about how I keep my fish tank clean. And I'm not just talking about doing a water change and that's it. I'm talking about everything that I do to keep my tank clear and clean for Butter. I've actually had a lot of people ask me, including my sister even, every time she comes to visit Butter, she always goes over to her tank and she's like, how is her tank so clear? How is her tank so clean? What are you doing? I made a list of 5 things that I do daily to weekly to keep Butter's tank clean, so that's the list I'm gonna be reading for you guys today. This hair is wild. If you guys enjoyed this video on how to keep your fish tank clean, feel free to subscribe down below and also hit the notification bell. I really hope this video helps someone out today, whether it's an algae problem or a nitrate problem or an ammonia problem, what have you. I hope this video helps you out. All right, so the number 1 thing on my list to keeping your fish tank clean and clear, and how I keep my tank clean and clear, is that it is technically an understocked tank. I'm really big on understocking fish tanks. Whenever I see a fish tank that has way too many fish in there, especially goldfish, because they are really high waste producers, it drives me mad and absolutely insane. I know there's a lot of people in the goldfish community especially, and also tropical fish, that believe it doesn't really matter if you have an overstocked tank as long as you do frequent water changes. For instance, there may be someone who keeps 4 or 5 goldfish in a 30-gallon when technically you shouldn't have any more than 2 goldfish in a 30-gallon, and they're like, well, that's fine, it doesn't really matter. I do water changes every 2 to 3 days, so my nitrates stay down. But that doesn't mean that the quality of life for your fish is really good. It just means that you are satisfied with the number of fish you have, but it doesn't mean that you're giving your fish the best life possible, if that makes sense. So that's one thing that drives me really crazy when I hear people say it's okay that my tank is really heavily overstocked because I do frequent water changes. While theoretically, yes, you may be keeping your fish alive, it doesn't mean they're thriving. So that's the first thing on my list definitely, is keeping an understocked tank. Butter is currently in a 36-gallon tank by herself. The typical rule for goldfish in terms of the minimum tank standards that most people go by is 20 gallons for the first fish and 10 gallons for every fish additionally. So for a 36-gallon tank, 2 fish would technically be understocked by 6 gallons if I were going by that rule of thumb. Now, there are a lot of people who believe that you should give your fish 20 gallons per goldfish, and I love that. I love that people go by that. A lot of people in the fish community do go by that, and that's amazing. The typical that I see is 2 goldfish in a 40-gallon. My tank is a 36, so it's technically 4 gallons short of the 20-gallon per goldfish rule. However, that rule is one that was kind of adopted, and it's not usually the standard, which is 20 for 1 and 10 for each additional. So technically, if I'm going by 20 for 1 and 10 for an additional, my tank would still be understocked with 2 fish. But for my personal opinion, it would be fully stocked at 2 fish. But there are a lot of benefits to not keeping your tank overstocked. One of them, of course, is cleanliness. You're gonna be able to keep your water levels really, really good. Also, if your filter were to go down, your fish have a much higher chance of dying in a very short amount of time because they're gonna be overproducing that ammonia at a rate that your water can just not stand. I've seen a lot of people on goldfish groups on Facebook have this issue with overstocked tanks. Their filter goes down and within 6 hours, they're losing fish left and right. So that's definitely another reason not to overstock your fish tanks. The second tip on my list is get a really strong filter, especially if you have a goldfish tank. Some fish are higher waste producers than other fish, and goldfish obviously are one of them. So this is the filter that I currently have on Butter's tank. It is an AquaClear 110. Again, she has a 36-gallon and this is a 110. This filter is built for anywhere between 60 and 110-gallon tanks. So technically this filter is 3 times the size that it actually needs to be for Butter's tank. This is a hang-on back filter, and I'm not gonna go into all the different types of filters that you can have on a tank. I prefer hang-on backs. I've always used hang-on backs. I really do love them, and they really are a really good filter. Now, I know this box looks kind of funny. If you go to a store today and buy an AquaClear, it's not gonna look like this. This is actually the old box. Fluval does own AquaClear, so if you go to buy one today, this is what it will look like. This is the AquaClear 30 box. This is actually the filter that's currently on my 20-gallon quarantine tank. And as you can see, it is much smaller than the AquaClear 110. So again, that is my second tip. If you have goldfish, make sure that you get a really, really powerful filter. Obviously, if you have a goldfish that isn't a really good swimmer, maybe it's a really large ranchu or even a pearl scale that's super, super big or something like that, make sure that you are adjusting your flow so you're not blowing your fish out of the water. The 110 is really, really strong, so if you do get a filter that strong for something like a 40 gallon or a 36 gallon, just make sure you're monitoring that and watching your fish and how they're swimming really well. Butter's a really strong swimmer. She has huge fins. She is a Thai Aranda and she's really big, so she has no issues whatsoever with her filter. She loves her tank and she's doing amazing, but that is something to mention. My third tip on how I keep my tank really clean and clear is water quality. Water quality is a huge contributor to whether or not your tank looks and is dirty or not. Water quality is a lot more than whether or not your water is clear or green from algae and gunk. It's also whether or not you have high ammonia, nitrites, or nitrates. It's really important to monitor those levels and keep them as low as possible. Obviously, this can be done with water changes by keeping those levels really low, but if you have a properly cycled tank, which is crucial to whenever you're getting started with fish in the first place, you really want to make sure that you cycled your tank really, really well going into it, and that way monitoring your water levels will be so much easier for you. If you have a properly cycled tank and it's understocked, you should have no trouble monitoring your levels and keeping them very manageable weekly. I, of course, have live plants in Butter's tanks. I have a pothos plant that I've showed you guys that's stuck in the back of her tank, and it pulls out nitrates like you would not believe. In fact, I do one water change a week, about every 6 to 7 days on Butter's tank. But a lot of the times when I do her water change, her nitrates are not even above 15. Like, I never have an issue with Butter's nitrates whatsoever. But also the live plants, including that pothos, pull them out so well. They definitely keep her nitrates down, and I never have to worry about ammonia because her tank is really, really well cycled and her filter is a beast. So I never have any issues with Butter's tank whatsoever. I definitely attribute the filter, water changes regularly, and that pothos plant for keeping all of her levels perfect. Obviously, when it comes to monitoring your ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates, you want to get a really good test kit and make sure that you're testing every day in the beginning. Once you get your tank matured and you've had fish in there a while, it was cycled before you ever put your fish in, and you kind of get a feel for the routine with your tank. Obviously, you can test as needed as you feel comfortable. In the beginning, I was testing every single day, but now I test about twice a week and right before I do a water change every week. And her levels are always perfect. I never have to worry about ammonia spikes. I just have a really solid setup right now and I absolutely love it. The fourth thing on my list for how I keep my tank really clean, now we've talked about the filter and also the water quality, and that's all the things that is really important for the fish and the health of your tank. But for the looks of my tank, I do keep my glass really, really clean. One thing that I do have that does grow on the glass of my tank is obviously going to be a little bit of algae. I have a little bit of brown algae at the bottom of the glass that always seems to pop up on the sides and the back of my tank. There are two ways that I accomplish keeping my glass clean on my tank, and that's what we're going to talk about and show you right now. The first thing that I do once a week during my water changes, while the water is low, I actually take some of the filter media sponge out of my filter and I scrub any algae spots that I see on my glass. Not only does this get the algae gone, but it also keeps the glass clean, as well as you're using filter media, so it's all the same filter media that's in your tank and in your water and in your filter, so you're good. I just take a piece of sponge out of my filter, clean the glass really, really well, and then put it back in the filter when I'm done, and that's it. Now, obviously, that algae is gonna come back in a few days, and it may even be back before I get around to doing the next water change. So something that I do is I use my best friend, my mag float. My mag float is a must-have. If you guys don't have one, I highly recommend it for keeping your glass clean on your aquariums. Even with the tank full, obviously you can still use your mag float. They're amazing. They get algae off the glass really, really well. Every couple days, if I happen to see a little spot, I'm very conscientious about taking my mag float and getting rid of it pretty quickly. So it does keep my glass really clean, and mag floats are definitely a must-have. And the fifth and final tip I have for you guys about keeping your tank clean is being really, really hands-on with your tank and not focusing on letting chemicals do the work for you. I use very, very, very minimal chemicals in Butter's tank. In fact, I only use 2 chemicals regularly, and that is Stability that I pour into my filter media on water change day, and Prime when I do water changes. That's it. I don't put any other chemicals in my tank at all. The reason is because I feel that it's healthier for my fish and my tank overall if I'm not putting a lot of artificial chemicals inside of there to do the work that I should be doing myself. Now, obviously, I have time. I do work from home, so I have a lot of time to spend on my tanks, and it doesn't bother me at all because I love my tanks. I love Butter 2 pieces, so I want what's best for her, and of course, I want my tank to look good too. So a lot of times, if someone has a fish tank and they have really high ammonia spikes or high nitrates and things like that, they may dump in a ton of Prime or some AmGuard or something like that to get rid of those levels when they should really be doing a water change. Now, obviously for emergency situations, like you're about to run out of the house and you test your water, your ammonia has spiked and you don't know why, well, I would stay home and fix it. But some people just have to go and they can't take care of it right then. Yes, you can use some chemicals to temporarily get those levels down for you, but obviously that's not what's best for your tank. An emergency water change is what would be best for that tank. So I personally rely on water changes and the maintenance that I already listed for you guys to take care of those things, instead of choosing chemicals to do it for me. So if I had an algae outbreak, like the little bits of algae that do show up on my glass, I scrub those off by hand and take care of that every other day, and then during water changes, as opposed to dumping in an algae killer that you can actually buy to do that for you. But it's not gonna be what's best for your tank, your cycle, or your goldfish, in my opinion. I personally feel it's best to be hands-on, and I do pay a lot of attention to my tank, and I do think that that is a big reason why my tank always looks really clean, it's really good, butter's really healthy, and it's really worked for me so far, and so I wanted to share all of that with you guys. Alright guys, that is it for this video. Those are the top 5 ways that I keep my tank really clean and keep butter healthy. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So now if any of you are wondering how I keep my tank really clean on a daily to weekly basis, this is everything that I do, pretty much daily to every other day and weekly. It is a lot of work. Fish tanks are a lot of work, especially a larger tank like a 36 gallon or bigger. They are a lot of hands-on work, but I love butter, I love my tank, and I don't mind it. And if you enjoy the fish tank hobby, you probably don't mind it either, and you probably already do all of these things, so you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, all the tips that I gave you in this video are just what works for me and my tank and butter. You may do things differently, and that is totally okay. Do what works for you and your tank and your type of fish. Obviously, I do have a goldfish tank, not a tropical or a saltwater, so things may work differently for you, and that's totally fine. Let me know down below if you guys have any special tips and tricks to keep your tanks clean, because I would love to read them and love to hear them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you guys in my next video. Be kind. Bye.